Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Weed Out, where we weed out the nonsense and talk crap about the ghouls. Today, in the Weed Out, we're going to talk about how sloganing and messaging can work both ways. And we're going to give a counter narrative to the popular naysaying of police defunding, saying that we shouldn't defund the police. The reason we should defund the police is because if you look at it from a budgetary point of view with dollars and cents that are finite, they're actually defunding the community. The existence of the police defunds the community, which then exacerbates the environmental realities of being poor, over-policed, bogged down in all the ways we talk about here, in ways that are unimaginable, and they seem they seem independent, but that's if you follow the American exceptionalism mindset. These things do all play together, and the reality is the police existence defunds the community, creates the environment to then quote unquote need police, and then the cycle continues. So, as always, Joanna's with me, and today we're going to be talking about how they defund our communities and how we can turn that narrative in the right direction, because dollars and cents don't lie. I mean, budgets do not lie. They tell the absolute truth. And that's where I'll end my thoughts on this soliloquy. So, Joanna, take it away.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. You're completely right, Spencer. The police are defunding our communities. That will be the title of this episode. For a lot of us, like, the defund the police slogan has been made really popular in a number of ways in the last few years. And it's very much disliked by a lot of people due to it being considered an extreme view, when that's not even happening.
And for me, it's not extreme enough. So there's also, I grind when I hear people say, we just need to defund them. Defund's the first step from my point of view. Just to show that it upsets, it's mealy mouth bullshit.
No, I completely agree.
And then gets used as mealy mouth bullshit.
No, you're fine. I completely agree as an abolitionist. And police are more often than not being defunded. They will immediately decry if they think the budget is adjusted in any way. We've seen this locally. We can share links on our website. You'll see this nationally. You'll see this in New York City a lot. Like, they will always decry if anything is touched in any way other than it being increased.
Also, pay attention to how they message before budget season. Look at their social media. Mm-hmm. What are they pushing?
And it should be noted that the majority of a municipality's budget for the police focuses on their personnel costs and the overtime. So, like, that really is the majority of what, like, they're getting is their pay and their overtime pay.
And then their overtime pay being things like traffic details.
Completely.
So they're getting paid a rate of, say, $100 an hour for round numbers, when you could be paying somebody, which is, it could be a work program. It could just be a straight up, everybody can apply for this kind of work. If you want to stand out in the elements and wave flags. Massachusetts, this is where we have our biggest issue. It's actually written into the contracts and the laws that the police have to be on every detail. So there can't be flag bearers. But like 99% of the time, there does not need to be an officer of the law there.
Well, making the amount they're making,
and they sit there on their phone.
People. It could be like,
and I'm not even one of those people that's gonna to mediate minutia here. Like, yeah, get on your phone, it happens.
Yeah, no.
But at the same time, it's like every time I drive by, I know you're making $100. You're looking down at your phone in your cruiser, and people are flying through the work zone still.
They could pay me $30 an hour to do a better job, a third of the price.
And for full disclosure, everybody, this isn't just me being on a rant. Like, I literally drive a truck for a living, so I spend 40 hours a week, and I see the cops as coworkers in a way, because they're on the roads and I'm using the roads. The main part of my job is the roads. It doesn't matter. I'm in fish, but it doesn't matter really. The bulk of my job is dealing with the roads, other drivers, my own mechanical issues, both being attentive as a driver. And also I'm paying attention because I can't afford to get it. I mean, let's just be real. We all speed, whether because it's a good spot to do it or because you're running late, and I try not to because I'm on company time, and it doesn't do anybody any good if I crash the truck. So I try to drive very safely. But the reality is, I look around, and I feel like I regulate the police officers more than they regulate people on the Mass Pike. They blow by people. They tailgate. They're looking at their phones. They're looking at the little laptop they got on their console. I have video on my dash cam. I got a dash cam specifically to document this, and I'm only one person, so it's slow goings on actually doing that, and we'd rather work on the weed out. But the reality is it's not. I didn't see one cop one time do this. I see it daily, and it doesn't matter the department. Mass State Police down to podunk, whatever. To the guys driving the sheriff's, I see every type of law enforcement on my shift. I see U.S. federal government vehicles. I see everybody, and they all drive like they own the road because who's going to stop them?
Yeah, the very limited experience I have as someone who works fully remotely, when I do drive, the police usually actually do terrify me in the way they're driving, just like.
And that leads to lawsuits because, like,
it's scary.
You look up the rates of car accidents that happen. Like, there's this big case. Shit, I'm sorry everybody for not having my receipts on this one, but I just saw it on Twitter. Basically, this guy was running late for work. He had to start at 9 or something. He got in a high-speed accident on a residential road on the way, like 2 minutes from the police department in his company cruiser before he was clocked in, claimed he was clocked in. 89 miles per hour, his little black box said, when it came to a sudden stop. Severely injuring the people he hit. And the officers that were down the street that were already starting their shift came and covered up for their boy. Yeah. And then when all this shakedown happens, because the person who got hit is going to have an insurance claim, then they're going to sue, and they're going to do all this, and there's going to be a ton of fallout. The cops don't pay for that. They're defunding our communities for that.
Exactly. And as someone who has been involved in a high-speed, motor vehicle accident, please, everyone, do drive safely. It wasn't the police. But when I see them driving recklessly, it is triggering. And
they have supercars too, which is even like those cars.
I probably would have died if they were the ones.
V8
actually.
SUVs. Like, why does Egremont's police out in bumfuck Western Mass that has like 10 year-round residents? I'm undervaluing.
No,
that,
yes,
but
you are. But
they have these ridiculous vehicles, and yes, I understand be able to have 4-wheel drive and stuff.
In certain communities,
because of course I want them to be able
to
be able to safely get around in the wintertime.
Yes,
and stuff.
That's the argument.
But like they drive these things because they're souped up. They have the best suspension. They're weighed down with all this gear, so they literally are a battering ram. SUVs are heavy. They're heavier.
Completely. That is what hit me and was the damage. Again, it was not a police officer, but their cars are
then you add in all the gear.
Exactly.
Again, and that's another thing. Why do they need all this gear? Defunding our community. Like, literally everything we talk about, you'd be like, and you're like, oh, this is so annoying. Why does East Hampton, Massachusetts have a grenade launcher? Well, right. 2 of them. Why? Why?
Aren't they one of the ones
this that is a fact that, like, there's been public records pulled by friends of ours. They gave them the inventory of the East Hampton, Massachusetts police inventory, and they have 2 rocket launchers. Now, I've read that you can modify them to shoot beanbags. So it's like a glorified potato launcher, as my barber put when I told him about that. He's like, "Oh, so they got to." But training for what?
I don't know.
And then, is there an army coming? Why do you need artillery? Like, what are we doing?
It's crazy.
And we know how it happens because of the washing of guns. I mean, the military has these contracts. They get the guns. They get the stuff. Then it's time because the contract says every couple years, or every cycle, you get the next round. What are they going to do with this old shit? They resell it to the local municipalities. And then the local municipalities probably sell it to fucking gun runners.
I mean, it's hard to say.
The amount of guns that go into American guns that go into Mexico. We talk about all the drugs coming from Mexico. What about all the guns we send to Mexico that are being laundered through, whether they're police taking them from criminals or unregistered guns? Then it's washed. It's in police lockup, but these cops are selling them on this to other, could be. Because they don't keep inventory of this stuff.
Yeah, so we have to be careful because we're not sure. And like this goes back to like public seizures, like where in Massachusetts, like if the police come to your home and have a warrant, this happened to my family. I have family members who have been incarcerated. My older sister's home has been searched by the police, the Pittsfield Police Department. They turned up some cash. They keep the cash no matter what. They turn up. They just keep whatever they want in Massachusetts. That's how it works. And so you wonder where that money goes. Again, it's taking money.
There's no accountability, so you can't even public records request what happened to
Exactly.
that $25,000 you took from JoJo down the street, who I knew was selling coke, but I also know, like, that's his life savings. I kind of, what did you do with his life savings?
Well, and
that's just solid worker solidarity.
Well, and also this was my older sister's home. My nephew didn't live with her. It wasn't his. He had his own apartment.
So it's even fuzzier.
It's a little fuzzier. It's stealing from. It's stealing from.
Because it could have been her money.
Could have, and that was what she told. That is why she wanted that money back. So, and I think like although we're a little off topic, it's defunding the community.
Because that leaves them open to lawsuits.
I mean, there was no way. This is years ago now.
No, but just these kind of allowing for these things, because these cops are sloppy too. So even if they are lawfully allowed to do stuff, they still screw things up.
Well, yeah, so records are not, like Spencer mentioned, necessarily. They're not kept, and they also aren't. There's no oversight to how they need to be kept, and we'll get into that more as we go through the episode. We have some direct quotes, some information, some statistics. And I just want to point out again, like in many cities, we mentioned it before, but like the largest portion of the police budget is used to cover salaries, their benefits, and their overtime for officers and their civilian employees. So, but yet police officers and city officials often say that the pay is inadequate. Stacey Abrams even recently did this, was like, oh, police aren't paid enough. And I just want to say in 2019, the median pay, which isn't the average, it's the medium. So it's like the medium pay. The median pay is usually like almost like a medium average. So that was $65,000 in the United States, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And I put this out there, like $65,000 may not be a huge amount of money, but in Western Mass, that's high up there for a salary in our towns.
For somebody that doesn't even need a college degree.
You're doing okay.
You don't need a college degree.
Right, because I have a master's and I make close to that. And I went to school for a long time.
Right.
I have a postmaster's.
I have 20 years on the job.
Well, I make
2/3 of that.
I'm just saying. So it's shocking to me that when most of the budget is actually their pay and their benefits.
Also normalize talking about your wages.
Yes. And talking about like civil servants' wages. You could search my salary in the state database. Please know it. That's fine. I like that the state makes it transparent.
Yeah, so if you're listening and you want to know how to democratize your workplace as a sole business owner and you have employees, openly post what everybody makes. Yeah,
that's a great idea. And so
if you want to walk the walk, that's a way to walk the walk. If you want to still operate a fair, you're running a small business. Like it's one of the small businesses I've worked for. Personally, I would feel great if my boss was like, this is what everybody gets paid. And for the most part, at my current gig, that is kind of how it goes. It's not posted anywhere. It's not hush hush either. Which is great. They're not. They definitely. It's neither. It's like it's good that they're not breaking the law, and telling and discouraging us from talking about wages. But it would be nice if that was like a spreadsheet we all had access to. It doesn't have to be on the break wall, but like if you're curious and you want to make sure you're getting paid, that's a good way to democratize the workplace while still being the tyrant. It's like a crumb you can give to your workforce, and it would go a long way, I think, because that's assuming you're paying everybody fairly, and then there's no issue on the floor.
It goes a long way, especially when you're part of a union, and then you know how you're paid.
Anyway, I got off topic. So.
No, you're okay. It's a good thing to talk about. But
workers' rights.
But yeah, so workers' rights, like he's saying.
But the cops use workers' rights too, and we're going to show you how.
Well, that's what we're saying. So they're like largest budget. Like the largest budget number for them when they get that money from your town is to pay themselves.
And personally, I'd rather give the guys taking care of the sewers $65,000 a year. Personally, taking care of the trash, the sewers, the mailmen, I want them to get paid. They keep the business moving, period. Literally.
And I want all workers to be paid fair wages, especially, I hope the police are abolished, so I do hope they quit their jobs, but I feel like all other workers. And so I was surprised by this source. I already told Spencer this. It's USA Today. Shout out to them for this
once in
wonderful
a lifetime.
I know, wonderful
USA
breakdown.
Today is a credible source.
But I'm gonna use a quote and I'll post it on our website, theweedout.com. So after our episodes, like, we direct you there, please check it out. It's a really long article, but it has some awesome information. So I'm just gonna read this quote. Police department appropriations generally account for the largest share of the budget in 35 of the 50 largest cities in America. But it's difficult to draw meaningful comparisons between cities because they use wildly different budgeting mechanisms. For example, the huge Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department budget is $656 million. It is funded not only by the city of Las Vegas, but Clark County also puts in a significant amount. And there's an allocated property tax exclusively for funding the police in that city. In other cities, police departments are funded entirely by the city government. But when comparing the breakdown of city budgets, it's important to remember that some city governments fund big budget items like education and health services. In other jurisdictions, those line items are funded outside of the city budget. In many cities, the largest portion of the police budget is used to cover, and I just mentioned this, salary, benefits, and overtime for officers and civilian employees. Yet police chiefs and city officials are often saying police pay is inadequate. And then they share that in 2019, the median pay for a police officer in the United States was $65,170, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
So on that median pay, does that include their overtime and their benefits, or is that just the cash?
So I'm not
Because
sure. I would
feel
assume
like
I would assume actually that it's not everything combined, but I can't say for sure. So we'll have to check that.
Because a lot of times, like in local, like in Holyoke, I've heard people say, "Oh, they only get paid 35," but it's like, what's their actual take home though? Like, just because it says like my wage on paper says if I work 38 hours, which I never do at this main gig. So like the take home, like the salary is actually less because I don't actually fulfill those 38 hours, but I still get paid hourly. I'm not complaining about my pay. It actually works out really good for me at my current job. Shout out to my oligarchs. But the reality is, it's like there are other ways for them to get money. Because if there's a roadway being fixed and it's coming through grant money from the federal government, that doesn't figure into the things we're paying them, and so it's.
Well, and this quote is basically.
And then there's the hidden costs that they get to incur, whether it's getting the hookup with the local bar when they go in. They don't get charged full price.
Totally.
I mean, Joanna and I have worked in the food service industry. I can promise you, it's a shakedown. Whether all parties are willing or not, it's totally inappropriate, unethical to be doing that from that position of power. Period. I don't care if that's how it works, and I don't care if bar owners or business owners are complicit in it. That's exactly the point. They work for these. They don't work for the worker.
Right. They would bust up our
and if
strikes.
if somebody that has some cash or some money gets in trouble, they can pay their way out. Because in this country, if you don't have the money, you do the time. If you have the money, you can greatly reduce your likelihood of serving any real time. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but
money helps.
Look at Donald Trump. I mean, look, this dude has been able to skirt.
Money helps.
Money helps, and knowing people helps, and knowing how the system works helps. So being educated in the classic, white man schools, the Ivy Leagues, for example. That's why these dudes never get in trouble. And that's why our system's wrong. But the cops, the only people that they really can change lives on are the working class.
Yeah. It's true.
And personal story here. My father got a DUI about 15 years ago. Had to deal with the system. He was hurt by it, but he had enough cushion that ultimately he didn't lose his house. It didn't destroy him. Yeah, it like messed some stuff up. Made it harder to do his work, own his own business. It made things hard. It could be a real snag on your life. Like literally can hold you up. And it happens to a lot of people. you know. And unfortunately, when it happens to these like upper crust, middle class guys, it all like hardens them the wrong way because they feel so inconvenienced the first time they have a consequence. But it's like you don't even understand how much worse it could get.
Right. And it shouldn't be punitive. It should be to like, it's clearly like
Well, we have
you're
a problem.
having a problem when you have
I
something
mean,
like that happen.
I know there's one-offs where people don't drink and drive, and the one time they do, they get bagged. I know that happens, but that is not the case.
Most people need help.
Most people who are drinking and driving and get bagged for it have done it before, and they'll do it again because they have an issue with alcohol. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, all the other drugs, mushrooms, LSD, everything else is illegal. You know, marijuana is still class 1 federal, and, you know, alcohol, good to go. And again, I go back to how this all started. Cops going into bars, and the rate of cops doing that is, I can imagine we look into how many cops drink versus don't drink. I
mean, it's a societal norm to drink, and it's not normal to not drink.
Right.
You'll be looked at less favorable in social settings if you don't drink sometimes, so it's actually like pushed in our society.
Right.
But yeah, we're a little off topic though.
But the point is, like, there's cutbacks and paybacks and kickbacks in ways that we can't even quantify.
Oh, that we wouldn't get as normal workers, totally.
And that it's just, you just don't get it. And like, so what's the real breakdown here? You give up being part of the true working class to go make a little extra and to get a little extra just for existing as somebody that protects the power. Meanwhile, the law only really, like, you only get locked up mostly if you're poor. And then when rich people do stuff like wage theft, they don't even investigate it.
Right.
They don't even invest in tools to investigate things like that. There's no, where in Holyoke can you go, or the state police, can you be like, hey, we think there's systemic wage theft. No, you have to go through the court system yourself. Mm-hmm. That's a law. There's labor law. Why aren't law enforcement enforcing that? That's because we all have to pay into this system that doesn't work for us. So they're literally defunding our families, our households. Mm-hmm. It's like no matter what way you spin it, you can spin it that they're defunding us.
No, definitely. And when you try to look at like, oh, how much money does go to the police in each town, and then as USA Today pointed out,
how complicated they make it.
Yeah, like USA Today basically points out, like it's basically impossible to compare each town because they don't have a uniform way that they need to keep the data. And there are countless examples of this in Western Mass. So Spencer already mentioned East Hampton. And we're going to talk about, I guess, like Springfield, Holyoke, Greenfield, and maybe Pittsfield. I'll see what we have about them. But like, we've requested things from Holyoke, and they're refusing currently. So we'll see what happens with that. I think throughout every single town, I would say like police associations, which I know are like known as their unions,
They're more like political PACs.
Yeah, and they continually get towns to give them like the optimal and very generous raises. I think like during the pandemic, they in my town got 4%, and then I'm in Montague, and then they get benefits and other things.
And then there's the other costs that they incur, like insurance.
Well, right,
and capital investments like cars and buildings and guns and what have you.
But like the majority of their budget is actually to pay them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me. And then the fact that they get these generous raises, it's like, okay, well, I'm a part of the Mass Teachers Union in the state under my position, and we get like 2% because since 2008 they give the cost of living. So it's just interesting to me that like the police are able to get so much more even during pandemics. And we're also a union, but their union's just treated more favorably. And I feel like it shouldn't be the case, but police will do this thing where they'll like refuse to work and then
sick outs.
Yeah, and people will feel unsafe.
Sick outs as a working class term means they utilize old school working class means as for getting their ways, which is like really is hard because I would normally agree with this tactic or not have a problem with it if this is what if somebody was doing to get their way with their employer. I've never organized a sick out at any of my places or been a part of one. Unfortunately, we've never had enough solidarity at most of the places I worked at over the years, restaurant business, that has that kind of, because we don't have money saved. So it's really hard to do sick outs. They make, 20 to 30% more than what they would be making if they weren't a cop with a high school degree. So they can save up and do sick outs. Plus, they have a really strong union, so they're going to get paid for that time. And then they're not going to do their quote unquote job, whatever the hell that is. But it's just, it's terrorism. It's to terrorize the community. To be like, look, it's like withholding. Oh, nice town there. Hope something bad doesn't happen to it.
Well, right. And I'm not trying to mock anyone, but like if you live in like most rural towns, at least in Massachusetts, please look at your town's data. I'm talking about Massachusetts specifically right now, but overall, like,
and what about the other hidden things they do, like the state and federal grants? And, you know, if anybody's worried about a fascist, you know, federal government led by the likes of somebody like Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis, Joe Biden and the Democratic and the Republican policy for the last 20 years, they've been handing out police pig tech like candy as federal grants. This ShotSpotter, like, that's why most people have it. The federal government. So if you're concerned, if you have a tinfoil hat theory about that, like, your federal tax dollars are going towards equipment that you don't even get a chance to consent to.
Also, I question you if you think that it's fair for teachers to be forced to work. Like, we can't legally strike, but the police could tell you, I am not going to keep you safe. It just seems weird. Like,
Yeah,
they're not essential.
It's a gang
Yeah,
tactic.
it's really messed up. So I just want people to think about that and look at your town's data and like crime-related data. Like, are you really even unsafe in your town? Like, what are they doing on a daily basis anyway? So I don't know. For most of us, if we're not getting our job done and meeting the requirements that we need, like, we're either reprimanded or we're fired. But police are costing taxpayers like a ton of money, and then
For going on administrative leave.
Well, and that's where we're going with this. Like, the other thing that they really kind of like the defund part that is more buried is the misconduct charges that still draw from public monies, but are in addition to the budgets already granted by the council that pay their personnel salaries and their benefits. And there are, again, numerous local examples. So, I mean, I can talk about Greenfield. In Greenfield recently, for example, the chief of police, and starting in May of 2022, the town basically called for his resignation and city councilor started meeting because the chief of police basically lost a civil lawsuit, I think it is, and he was the town has to now pay $425,000. So the city council took that money away from the police department.
That all this information is on the People's Budget of Greenfield.
Mm-hmm.
So you Google them, and we'll post a link to their website, People's Budget of Greenfield, and they've made an excellent argument about how the police defund their city.
Totally.
This is definitely a big inspiration for this episode.
It's just, and the acting police chief then used Facebook to manipulate and deceive the public, but then he said that most of the followers on his Facebook page weren't even from Greenfield. So it's just, it was kind of an unbelievable, and it's still going on, and we'll talk more at the end of this episode about a call to action for our neighbors in Greenfield. But Greenfield has a lot of issues with not just the chief of police, but a lot of their officers. Again, you can find out about all of those issues with the officers of Greenfield on the People's Budget of Greenfield's website. Again, great information.
And, back to another way, and this ties into that police chief using Facebook, right? Another way they defund us is some of these departments, like LA is the most egregious example, the LA Police Department with their PR team.
Yeah.
They have a PR team like the size of a Fortune 500 company.
But,
and they say because they have a lot of increase. It's like, why? Because you're doing awful things that you have to answer for. And then the worst part is the kick in the nuts is that corporate media just, as a news article, will say, police say ... This was made popular on a most recent John Oliver Next Week Tonight episode, which I'm glad a major show was talking about this, because nothing gets my goat more than WWLP out of Springfield or Mass Live tweeting some police say nonsense when it has nothing to do with the police. And it's like, did you do any journalism, or do you just parrot this propaganda where the cops aren't even relevant?
Right.
They're not even fucking relevant. Are they the journalists, or are you?
Right.
And again, our Holyoke has a Captain Moriarty is the chief of communications director or some bullshit title. He's literally the PR guy. Why does a town of 40,000 people need a PR guy?
Well, and in Greenfield, they were doing a similar. They have their scenario too, where they had someone like in charge of PR call me at one point, and then they're using Facebook in a way to kind of get messaging out. It's just, I mean, it makes sense that you like want to connect with the public, but the police should not be doing that. And we can share some information on journalists not
Also, Captain Moriarty has one less thing he has to worry about with Instagram not being being a thing anymore. So I'm going to keep bringing that back. Joanne and I successfully negged them to get rid of their Instagram. I don't know if it was us alone, but it does feel like we pushed the most for the longest time consistently about it, and now they just don't even have one. It's a headache, and that's the thing. It's like, so I would like some of your salary back because you're not even doing Instagram anymore. Because I'm petty.
You are.
And also, he's demanding Counselor Maldonado Velez to abstain from making budget decisions about the police because he's clearly biased by calling them a gang. It's like, the guy's trying to suppress free speech too. So I want some of my money back.
Fair.
You're not understanding the Constitution. You're the fall guy for the department. So yeah, you're going to draw my ire. Because what the fuck? But again, we're paying this person's salary when, I don't know, we could be paying 3 flag holders and give good jobs, guaranteed jobs to people, as opposed to paying somebody $100 an hour to stand over a manhole when you could have 2 or 3 people do that job and pay them $25 an hour. And net win, you got 3 jobs, paid decent wage. You're not going to be a millionaire on that, but you still have a $25 delta, because if your average cost is $100 per hour for a cop,
Right.
you can say, and like everybody wins. 3 jobs. Construction in New England that's a business that's not going out of business.
It's true.
So, especially with climate issues. We're going to be working on the roads, I'd imagine, and we're not getting away from trains or anything we're not going towards trains anytime soon. So the reality is, roads are the future still, whether we like it or not, and those could be 3 good jobs.
It's true, and then they could also just listen to the community, like neighbor to neighbor had requested that they would fund the Department of Public Safety, which is unrelated to the police, less, like they only are funded $500 currently.
What?
And they're requesting at least.
So what do they have?
They
have a
barely do
phone
anything.
that nobody answers. Like, what
anything.
can you do with $500 for a month or a year?
That's their whole budget. So
For a year, $500.
Yeah, that's
so
what Katie was saying.
You can have a phone line that goes nowhere. Because what's
who's
a phone
gonna
line
call?
cost
Like
you?
nothing's happening then. You know what I mean?
It's wild. Maybe a website.
I don't even think so.
Like, here's a phone number for like Good Samaritans. They could put a website up.
So that's something where it's like, hey, you guys could change some of the funds for that.
Yeah, I wonder what the deal is like in Holyoke with the mayor using ARPA funds as a threat, to demand that the council use the federal grant. Why can't we do that with other things? Like, they found a way to utilize this negotiation tactic, this leverage tool of leveraging the town's ARPA funds for the ShotSpotter purchase, right? Well, who's to say we can't do that with other departments? Why can't we leverage? Oh, well, we found a grant for this.
Well,
So
I don't know if Holyoke has a grant writer for anywhere
Well,
but
that's
the
the other
police
thing.
department.
Could we invest in a grant writer
Yeah,
as
they
opposed
should.
to having a communications director on the police?
Well, and the police department has a grant writer too. I'm pretty sure.
Great.
And I can check myself, but I'm pretty sure. And I recently was just looking, because we were talking about like police misconduct over like the course of the whole country, and I found an article on 538, and it discusses specifically how cities spend millions on police misconduct, which we already knew. But a quote that stuck with me is that, again, we've talked about data. In many cases, the cities this is 538, told us that we weren't keeping records in a form that would allow them or anyone else to easily analyze how much money was going out of the door for police misconduct. A handful of places responded to our public records request with a sheaf of court documents that told us to figure out the totals on our own. Others sent easier to analyze data with the caveat that some relevant incidents might still have been excluded, and then refused to elaborate on how or why the data was incomplete, which completely tracks with every interaction I've had with records requests from police departments. And it completely tracks with everything I feel like we've kind of dealt with in like friends and things like that, just telling us about stuff. We had some other examples of kind of misconduct that happened in Holyoke.
Holyoke's got it all, man.
I know.
Holyoke could be a case study on American fascism.
I know.
It's like an apartheid city. They keep certain people on certain sides. They literally get surveillance equipment for them. It's really fucked up.
It is, and I think like I know that Mayor Garcia has an audit going on that's going to look at like most their overtime and some other things, but Holyoke has had like literally extortion happen. Like they've extorted money from a local resident and then returned the money to that person once they had legal assistance in place. It was like $25,000. We'll share the link to the story. It's honestly ridiculous. Like they literally just brought a woman to the bank.
This is from a reputable newspaper, local newspaper,
totally
Gazette.
reputable.
This isn't one of us.
This is not made up.
Us, blogs out here, Substack writers. No, I mean, hey, we're legitimate. But if the Gazette is making a post, it's like that's how egregious it is. That's to me, it's like when the right-wing Gazette feels it has to bring it up, it means there's other stuff underneath the surface. This is just something that couldn't be kept quiet.
I agree. And then we talked about ShotSpotter recently, and like many communities pour funds into this useless tech, but Holyoke's last meeting was to vote to use funds to do that in their community. Many people spoke out against it. We'll share it, and you can go to our last episode to hear all about that. But I'm going to share a link from a local lawyer, Kate Murdoch, that really discusses this useless technology. She's a Holyoke native, and it just really gives a good viewpoint. You can read about that on theweedout.com. I think it's important to know like what monies are being used in your community. And then I guess like another kind of great link that we can share is just in Springfield, like they literally have the DOJ involved in investigating their police department because they've had so many settlements over the years where they basically weren't upholding people's constitutional rights. And I'll share some of that. And
yeah, I mean, in addition to the specific things we'll share about Springfield, just Google Springfield police issues.
And that's Springfield, Massachusetts.
Springfield, Massachusetts, yes. A basketball Hall of Fame is located there for some pop culture reference. That's one of the big claims to fame to Springfield. Plus, it used to be a giant hub of industry.
It's a cool town.
Back when trains were really doing stuff, Springfield was like a big hub between New York and
totally. I worked
Canada
there for a while.
Boston.
I like Springfield. It has a large black population, and the police are just brutalizing that community especially. So the DOJ moved in under Trump, which I think says a lot.
It was the only investigation by Trump's DOJ into police misconduct, at least the last 2 years, and I think all 4 years. That's how egregious it was. That Bill Barr said this is enough.
Right. It really speaks for itself. But we will share links to all of that, and then.
And because it's Massachusetts, they've been able to kind of our neoliberal propaganda machines, Boston Globe, Springfield Recorder. Gazette, they don't really, there is a lot to learn about Springfield Police Department. And we talk about Holyoke because I live there, and I feel like we actually have a fighter's chance against them because it is kind of a podunk operation.
They all are, but I know what you're saying.
It's kind of, they're teetering because there's enough people in town that are kind of like, fuck these guys. They may not agree with our point of view, but there's enough people in Holyoke of all stripes, from the kind of fashy people to left-leaning to kind of just typical people that are, they don't have a side. They're just kind of existing. There's a lot of grief, I mean, a friend of mine that has dealt with him, and they harassed her business and stuff, and she doesn't have permission to share the story, so I won't share any specifics. Mm-hmm. But like the reason I get so fired up here, especially about Holyoke, because I know people have been personally affected by them, all the way up to the white neoliberal white lady business owner. They don't care. They will harass anybody, including nice, middle-class, white, professional women that own their own business, and they will literally stalk them because they asked them what they were doing one time. And that's literally as succinctly as I can tell that story. So, like, that's why I get fired up, and we don't have permission to tell all these stories in detail, so... I'll allude to them maybe, but like we obviously have shared the things that have been publicized because, it's been corroborated by other people. But it's just, they're a bunch of bullies, man. And at the very least, like the mental health aspect, they defund our mental health. They take away, like, Even if you're a normal person in this country, a nice normie, when you get pulled over, does your heart rate go up?
Everyone's does.
Why the fuck does that happen with supposedly somebody that's there to protect us?
Exactly.
It's an abusive, narcissistic relationship. It's just like living with my authoritarian parents growing up, man. It's not a safe relationship.
Every town in America should feel that way, and you should. Honestly, it's not about not liking the police. It's about how is my money being spent? Am I being kept safe? What does safe mean?
Right.
And these are just all questions you should really
when you
ask
questions
yourself.
for accountability and you see how incompetent they are at even doing that, why do we give these types of people this much power? The right and ability to take a life with qualified immunity. That's a lot of power. Judges don't have that.
Well, no one has that.
The president doesn't have that. I mean, Donald Trump said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. He never did, though, so we'll never know.
Yeah, but no. Like, oh my God.
Sorry.
It's fine.
I know I shouldn't bring up the Orange Goblin here, but
it's fine.
He's an emblem. I mean, the reason we don't talk about federal stuff is because the reality is the ghouls in our backyards are people we can handle. And they are just as bad, and they hold the platform for people like Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, Joe Biden, all these people. They are holding this all up for them, the Kevin Jourdains, because if we can't even question these people that we are physically neighbors with, good luck going after people in higher places, right? Or Joanna, am I wrong?
No, you're
That's
not.
why we focus on the local.
You're not wrong. For me, that's totally why, and it's also the reason I focus on the local. A big part of it is to, I think we all look at how much our vote counts and how much things matter, and this is going to lead into us giving you some information, but like local and state level elections, like your vote actually does count in a way that's much different than when you vote federally too.
And you're more likely to get an audience when you have an issue with a local representative.
You can
whether they like you or not, they're more likely. Me calling Joe Biden, I'm not getting a seat at his table. It's just not going to happen unless I get my arm blown off by somebody, and it's a big tragic story.
Well, and we have the Electoral College federally, which if people don't know what that is, please look it up. But at a local or state level, it's really like your vote is more direct. So I just want to let people know that our next election, our general election, is Tuesday, November 8th in the state of Massachusetts. And you need to get registered by the 29th. So either postmarked in the mail or in person, but there's an online way to register too, like a portal. So we can share that on theweedout.com. We just want to let people know that, again, like you only have a few times to like let your voice be heard throughout the course of a year, potentially in your local vote, like city government. And then maybe if there's a vote coming up, and there are some really good questions. So please think about voting and like look into what the questions are talking about. You should be really, trying to get out there if you can, and sometimes your town will have ways to help you do that. So please make your voice heard.
And I want to, for those people that grumble about electoralism and vote hard, I agree. I hate that focus on voting. Voting is important still, because even if we lived in our utopia, we would still need a way to organize our thoughts, and people would have to vote on things. Direct democracy, representative democracy, what have you, doesn't matter. The point is you still have to participate.
My follow-up to that is I'm only giving people who vote and still participate in that part of our society's decision-making. Well, you can do that, but I'm just saying to our listeners.
I shouldn't say that.
No, you don't have to.
Don't take my endorsement as gospel. I just think that I believe in incrementalism. This is where I stop with my incrementalism. It's like, well, that system exists. I'm still going to participate in it, but I'm also going to build other structures up, like doing the weed out or doing activism or talking to my coworkers, trying to democratize the workplace. Because ultimately, we're not going to live in a real democracy until we democratize the workplace. As long as we have oligarchs, we don't live in a democracy. But when it comes to voting, you choose not to vote. There's also questions. You can abstain from voting for Maura Healey or Jeff Deal. But there are questions about laws that will directly affect us.
Also, if you don't choose to vote and participate in that system and that's a way that you protest, that's totally fine.
Yes,
I just want to put that
I'm
out
sorry
there.
to sound so...
You're fine.
I don't believe
You're
in forcing
fine.
people to vote, but it's just like, it's one way to get... Even just casting a ballot and writing Mickey Mouse in for president, but maybe you voted on a candidate that is reasonable, because there are Workers' Party candidates on the state ballot, not in our jurisdiction, well, except, no, take that back.
No idea.
We're going to have to look it up. But basically, there is somebody that's statewide. It's like Solicitor General or some one of the positions that is not widely publicized. No, so there are you can protest vote. Like, for example, I have never voted for a president on the ticket. I voted for my state reps and my congressmen, but I've just, because we live in Massachusetts, no matter what, like, the Electoral College blocks my vote.
Well, yeah, we usually go blue. I can't get into it too much. I just want people to know that.
Just, that the option's there.
The option's there, but if you don't vote because you see that system as corrupt as everything else, then
That's
I understand that too. That's a completely
reasonable statement. And I just like to utilize, Joanna and I also know it's kind of futile to ask for records, but we just like making them sweat.
Oh yeah, like I understand the data makes no sense and they're not keeping the records. I just want them to show me what they're doing.
Yeah, for peace of mind mostly. I guess I would say I participate in the electoral process more just so like, all right, I've tried every lever, the polite way, the traditional way, the civil way, voting quietly in a ballot booth. It's just I mash it so hard. That's how I just vote so hard when I'm voting.
I just stuff ballots everywhere.
I punch that button. Sorry,
every time I hear
Democratic messaging, vote hard. Ballots. We need to vote like we've never voted before.
Yeah, no,
I know
don't
what
like
they
that.
mean, but
I don't
just
mean
hate
that at
saying.
all. I'm just letting people know it's a possibility if they'd like to do it.
And again, one of the questions that I'm really excited about is the one about dental, basically making dental insurance companies pay for care. It's question 2.
Yeah, and question 1 and question
taxing it's a windfall tax
question 1 is about taxing people who make $1 million or more in the state and using that money for the roads and for education. So I would vote yes on number 1, and then number 4. I don't know number 3, but I'll share it. Number 4 is to let anyone who needs to use the road, even if they're not a legal citizen, be able to have a driver's license.
Which is a good one, because then we know people are getting insured.
Yes,
even
exactly.
Though they're not
But if you get into
so
a high-speed motor vehicle accident
that doesn't have papers.
Exactly.
And it's another way to, for all the people that want to fear-monger about xenophobia and, they're coming over the border, well, now you know where they're at. That's where one thing I know, but I get itchy. But that's the thing. I get itchy about even documenting anything personally. But I also understand why.
Yeah, it's
you're driving. Where I'm kind of an anarchist.
You're driving. You need to be insured.
I can be reasoned with on that, but I do get a little itchy about because this is how people lock down where you're at, and this is how tyrannical police. This is a tool for them. But I think another. I know we're wrapping up here, so we'll post. Any information on these questions.
Yeah, I can share all the stuff.
Also, we should share. We're going to share the op-ed from a man from Hadley, Massachusetts, who makes over $1 million, who said that the rich are a minority and they should be treated as such, and it's not fair. Mm-hmm. So we're going to share that op-ed too, because if you just want a good chuckle and why people say eat the rich, this guy's the reason.
Totally.
It's the most unintentionally funny op-ed I've ever read, and infuriating that a newspaper posted it because it's such a slap in the face. Because most people do not make $1 million around here.
No.
You truly are a minority. I guess there's no lie detected.
So we'll post that. And then we have a call to action before we wrap up. Our neighbors in Greenfield, there's a city council meeting tomorrow, Wednesday night. So
this might be a little late, but we
just
got the information.
So it's you may not be able to get out there and do this, but we are gonna put some information on our social media to let people know before this episode drops. So they're wanting people to come, but so we're going to reach out to them and see how this meeting goes. They want people to vote no to the police audit, and they want the mayor to participate in a special forum to answer the public's questions about a lot that's been going on. The mayor's been really dodgy in the community. So
we're going to do a whole episode on this with we're going to hopefully get John and Rachel from Greenfield People's Budget, the website we've referenced multiple times, to contribute, to tell their story, because they could probably tell it better than us. They've been on the front lines.
Totally.
But there's some real fuckery, and it's definitely something that needs to be weeded out.
And just try to support your neighbors whenever you can. So again, we'll find us on social media. We'll be sharing stuff there, and then Yeah, like Spencer said, we'll be doing a whole episode on this particular city council meeting.
And one, just some house cleaning notes. Please follow us on our social medias. We're everywhere. Some we're more active on just because they're a little less content heavy. Twitter, Facebook, we share all our links. We just got Facebook up. Instagram, we're pretty active on. We have a YouTube channel, a TikTok, a Twitch. So anywhere you go on social media, please add us there. It helps get us out and boosted. Leave reviews if you can. That would be great. Follow us on your favorite podcast stream. Even if, you don't listen to podcasts all the time, at least follow us. So that way we can get an idea of what people are listening to. And,
you could subscribe.
Share this with your friends
Right.
if it's something you may be interested in, or if you have more questions, please email us. If you have any specific questions, corrections, if you maybe, have a rebuttal, we're more than welcome to hear it. But full disclosure, that means we might talk about it. So whether we agree or disagree. So if you want to comment, please, we're open to it. And but it goes both ways. We're welcome to comment back. So any of our trolls, which we have some trolls on Facebook already. It's
Welcome.
Facebook's is really living up to the reputation that I remember so fondly.
Welcome, trolls.
I've been on Facebook a long time, but it's if they're listening to this part of the episode, wow.
You've made it this far.
I think you want to date us.
I'm cute.
I'm not, but I'm compelling. So anyways, thank you very much for listening. The best way to get local media and punditry out there is sharing it with your friends. We are aggressive, we're outspoken, but we are a safe space, and we're ultimately looking for safe community. And so sometimes we may come across as a little gruff, a little pointed, but we are pointing out the bullies and the ghouls that are making our lives harder that don't have to.
Exactly. And we are a safe space. And I sound a little less aggressive sometimes.
I think part of it's just my manliness.
It's only sometimes.
Can only unlearn so much in a lifetime. So again, thank you for tuning in. Visit the website, follow the socials, share the hashtags. Pretty active on Twitter. Twitter's a hot spot for this kind of talk. And again, have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Take care.